Evening, everyone. It is Monday, November 4th, 2024, and this is a public meeting of the School Board of West Bend Joint School District Number 1. More than 24 hours prior to the meeting, notice of the time, place, date, and subject matter of this meeting was posted at the entrance doors at the Education Service Center and on the district website. It was also sent to the West Bend Community Memorial Library, the Daily News, WRYU, the Milwaukee Journal Sentinel, and other media sources that have requested notice of our meetings. I'm going to pause just to ask Superintendent Wimmer to confirm that this meeting was properly posted.
Yes, it was.
Great, thank you. Please rise and join me in reciting the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. We've recognized a quorum of our board present. We have 6 board members present. John Donaldson is absent and excused, so we'll see him at our next meeting. Next on our agenda is consideration to approve the agenda. It was posted in advance, and I would move to approve this agenda. Is there a second?
Second. Nope.
We'll give that one to Kelly. Motion and second to approve the agenda. Any final discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Thank you. That motion carries. We are pleased with our to recognize a number of individuals who are in attendance here today. We have a number of recognitions, and I believe that we're going to have Erin Felber come to the podium, our West Athletic Director, and she's going to walk us through a number of recognitions. We can't wait to hear about them. Erin, please take it away.
Hello, thank you for having us. First up, we have our West Cross Country team, Ethan Hackman and Coach Scott Hammer. Come on up.
Say hi, Ethan. Hello. Well, first of all, I'd like to thank the school board for taking time and recognizing these student athletes. It's definitely a journey to get to this point. And before we recognize Ethan's accomplishments over the past 10 days, I think it's important to kind of put in perspective where this journey starts for him. It was less than a week after the last day of last school year that Ethan and his teammates began preparing for this cross-country season. Every morning, 8:30 a.m., Riverside Park, they are getting together and they're doing their captain's-led practice. Over the next 10 weeks, they put in hundreds of miles preparing for the season. August 19th, once the season began, not only was it Ethan and his hard work, it was his teammates pushing him to become better every single week. And he reciprocated by making them better every single week. All this preparation led to Ethan's best career season. He had 6 top 10 overall finishes throughout the season. He had a 5K average time of 16:38. That was a 38-second improvement over last year's average time. He had a lifetime PR of 16:17 for the 5K. That puts him at the 7th fastest 5K time ever run by a West junior. He was first team all-conference with a 4th place overall finish. Now, even with all of these successes throughout the season, we knew that going into sectionals was going to be a very tough day. We had 3 top 12 ranked teams in our sectionals where only the 2 teams advance, and only the top 5 individual place finishers that are not associated with the qualifying team advance. And we had a very stacked individual field as well. Put things in perspective again, freshman year, Ethan was an individual qualifier with a 17:22 at the sectionals. Same course his sophomore year, he ran a 17:17, qualified individually. This year, we put 3 athletes below the 17:17 time at the same course. Only 1 advanced. Ethan had to run a 16:22, almost a minute faster than last year to qualify for the state meet this year. So it was extremely gutsy effort against a very, very talented group of high school runners. So as a third year individual qualifier, he advanced to the state meet. He had the support of family, friends, teammates, and had a fantastic outing this last Saturday, finishing 52nd overall out of, I believe, 190 in that race, and ran a time of 16:34, still under his season average. So just a fantastic effort, great season. I think you'll see him here again next year. So congratulations, Ethan.
Absolutely, congratulations. Aaron, are you introducing the next group as well? I believe Trail Sharks is next, correct?
Yes, correct. So we have several coaches and fans here for the Trail Sharks, which I'm very appreciative of. And I think Coach Rob Wilmus is going to say a few words. Come on up, guys.
I'm not doing this by myself. So again, good evening. Thanks for the opportunity to recognize the accomplishments of 3 of our athletes today. As stated by Aaron, my name is Rob Wilmus. I'm a teacher here at the district. I've been coaching the team for about 12-ish years now. So for those of you that don't know, we are not a WIAA sport. We are part of NICA, the National Interscholastic Cycling Association, based out in California. Our core values are to create community, fun, equity, inclusivity, and respect inside and outside the cycling community while building strong bodies, minds, and character through cycling. This year we had over 2,000 athletes joining our Wisconsin League team, 1,300 of which raced at our state championships. So our 3 athletes, Ayla and Shaylin and Aiden, represented our varsity level athletes at the state meet. See, I typed this all up and I knew I wasn't going to follow it. So Ayla, Shaylin, and Aiden all had fantastic racing season at a high level, some of them overcoming injuries, some of them having different mindsets this season, all of which turned out to be very positive for their teammates and for their coaches in mind as well. I know Aiden and Shaylin, I would highly expect them to be right back up here at the same time next year, but Ayla is our senior this year, and she's not going to be returning to us as a team member, but hopefully at some point potentially she'll return to us as a coach. We'll see if life permits. I've known Ayla since she was a little kid. Her and my daughter have been in Girl Scouts together since first kindergarten. Okay. Ayla's big thing is she's always found ways to give back to her community, whether it's the West Bend greater community or our cycling community as a whole. Last year for her Gold Award, she built a skills course out at Glacier Blue Hills Park in West Bend. And it's been fantastic to see the work that she put in is not only affecting little kids going out and riding that skills course, but is also affecting us bigger kids that like to go and push ourselves and do not always the smartest things, but it all works out for us in the end. But part of what the 3 of them have done on the team is continued to push themselves, push their fellow teammates, and push us as coaches, along with turning around and being able to compete at the varsity level at a state meet has been pretty fantastic. We have a theme on our team of do hard things, and I have no doubt in my mind that Ayla and the rest of them are going to continue to do amazing and hard things for not only our cycling community, but the community as a whole as well. So thank you for your time.
Thank you. And Aaron, I believe we have another recognition for tennis, West Girls Tennis, correct?
Georgia, yes. Unfortunately, our coach, Natalie Blaze, could not be here tonight, so you get to hear from me as a fill-in. So she did write something up here for you from Natalie. I want to express my gratitude to the school board and Superintendent Wimmer for this opportunity to recognize Georgia Hadorf, a West High School senior who qualified for the WIA Division I state tennis tournament. Over the past 4 years, Georgia has been an important member of our varsity tennis program, where I've had the privilege of watching her evolve not only as a player, but as a remarkable young leader. Her influence has been particularly meaningful this year on our team. We had 57 players, so largest team certainly in my time here. So very exciting. Georgia's performance in the #1 singles position has been outstanding, achieving an impressive 19-8 record through sectionals. As a team captain, she exemplified the pure power of dedication Georgia didn't simply dream of making it to state. She earned it through consistent, determined effort every single day. Her impact on West tennis extends far beyond her personal achievements. The positive example she set will continue to inspire and shape our program's success for years to come, both through her athletic accomplishments and her strength of character. To Georgia and her family, congratulations on this tremendous achievement. Thank you for helping make West tennis stronger than ever. Georgia, please stay in touch. We'll miss you dearly. So that's from Coach Blaze. But I also want to add my personal touch. Thank you for your dedication to the program, your hard work over the past 4 years. I love tennis, so I've loved watching you play. So congratulations.
Thank you.
Well, thanks to the players and the coaches for coming tonight, for not only just keeping us connected to what's going on and all the amazing things that are happening, but also letting us celebrate your accomplishments with you. And I'm so glad to see family members here as well. What we'd like to do next is we have our student representative reports, and then if you'd like, we welcome everybody to stay for our public meetings, but afterwards, if you'd like to depart, we totally understand that as well. But why don't we invite forward our student representatives? We have Noah Minty, and I believe we have Amaya Turner. Do I have that right? Okay, and Amaya, you look like you were going to get up, so I'll bet you're going first. Amaya, you are a senior at East, is that correct?
That's correct.
Why don't you tell us what's going on?
Okay, so I'll be talking about our student life and academics, as well as a couple other athletic accomplishments that Ms. Felber did not speak of. But first, we want to recognize the 15 seniors from East and West high schools that earned a 35, 34, or 33 on the ACT. Keep in mind that a 36 is the perfect score. So we want to congratulate Maddie Bell, Samantha Eckert, Dakota Gannair, Liam Mickey, Evelyn Miller, Annalise Pachesney, Cadence Polly, Elise Vidal, Ian Ressler, Owen Schlamer, Vincent Summers, Reed Strofelt, Mason Warzak, Reed White, and Evelyn Wolf. And then our high school has a few business tests that some students also participated in. So results are in for the 23-24 school year High School of Business Program test. The program is a National Accelerated Business Administration program of MBA Research and Curriculum Center. More than 7,000 students from across the nation participated in the program during the 23-24 school year, and there were a number of East and West high school students and 2 Badger students, who are now freshmen, who scored among the top business students nationwide. So from the former class of 2024, we had Nathan Glodowski, Carter Kelly, Celine Paz, Kaylor Wadowski, Aspen Patterson, Tyler Sternig, and Mason Rao. And then from this year's class for Principles of Business, we have Caleb Garrison, Isabel Helmuth, Dylan Crocker, Addison Landy, Evan Pitson, Nathan Schultz, Reed Strofelt, and the 2 freshmen for leadership were Ethan Chris and Sophie Roberts. More from athletics. During the week of September 27th, the West varsity football team was named Team of the Week by the Milwaukee Journal. Emmy Miller from the West volleyball team achieved a milestone of attaining 1,000 digs, and Miller averaged about 14.4 digs per match. The current school record is 1,255. And we had 2 West teams as regional champs. So 2 West high school teams are WIA regional champions. The West Bend boys soccer team beat Pulaski High School last weekend 1-0, and the team took on Cedarburg on the 31st at Cedarburg. And the West volleyball team beat Manitowoc Lincoln to win the WIAA regional last weekend. The Spartans took on Menominee Falls October 31st. That's all I have for you.
Well, thank you. And we invite Noah Minty forward. I know you're a senior at West.
That is correct.
All right, tell us what's going on.
Not quite so much in the ways of clubs and co-curriculars this much, but we do have a few important updates. On October 19th, the Wisconsin Civics Games hosted their second annual competition. The club invited multiple schools near the district to compete and learn about Wisconsin politics. On November 2nd, the West Bend debate team hosted their annual challenge. Our team held first speaker and first place in the Lincoln Douglas debate category. The West Bend High School Student Council will attend a fall leadership conference on November 18th to learn new ways to improve student community and involvement in the high schools. And finally, our Skills USA chapter's leadership team traveled to the 2024 Fall Leadership Conference on October 26th and 27th. The experience provided them with new ideas for how to better run the West Bend chapter. That's all I have for you. Thank you for listening to all the wonderful things that are going on in our school.
Well, thank you. And as I said before, we appreciate you giving us these updates and help keeping us connected. We appreciate it very much. This is where I'll pause and make good on my promise before. We welcome everyone to stay for a public meeting, but we also understand it's a school night and you may have things going on. So if you wish to depart, we are not offended, but please stay if you'd like. We'll just take a pause for a moment. It's all right, maybe we'll proceed. Next on our agenda is public participation. I have not received any public participation cards, so I'm just going to scan here to make sure there aren't any. I don't see any, so we will move forward then with our consent agenda. On our consent agenda tonight, we have minutes of the October 21, 2024 regular board meeting and the executive session. We have no contracts, resignations, or retirements. We have disbursements posted through November 1st, 2024, and I believe that concludes the consent agenda. Are there any questions on the consent agenda? Hearing none, I'd move to approve the consent agenda as presented. Is there a second? Second. Thank you, June. We have a motion and second to approve the consent agenda. Any final discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Thank you. That motion carries. We move now to reports. And first report is clerk's report to the community regarding deadlines for filing for board candidacy or non-candidacy for the spring 2025 election. And to walk us through that is our clerk, Melanie Aragot.
All right, an election is to be held in the School District of West Bend on Tuesday, April 1st of 2025. The following offices are to be elected to succeed the present incumbents listed: the Office of School Board for John Donaldson and the Office of School Board for myself, Melanie Aragot. The term of office for school board members is 3 years, beginning on Monday, April 28th of 2025. A description of the school district boundaries can be obtained from the school district office. The deadline for incumbents to file a notice of non-candidacy is December 27th of 2024 by 5 p.m. A campaign registration statement and a declaration of candidacy must be filed no later than 5 p.m. on Tuesday, January 7th of 2025 in the office of the school district clerk at the Education Service Center located at 735 South Main Street, West Bend, Wisconsin, 53095. If a primary is necessary, the primary will be held on February 18th of 2025. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Appreciate the announcement. Board members, any questions? Thanks again, Melanie, appreciate that. We're on to our superintendent's report. Superintendent Wimmer.
Just a note that last Friday was the end of our first quarter, so that time is going quickly. Also, as we approach the community vote on the facilities referendum, the outcome will influence our path forward in the coming months. So just a reminder, should the referendum be approved, the district will then embark on a design and construction phase that would involve detailed planning sessions to finalize designs and timelines with a phased approach to allow us to focus on high priority items first, ensuring both efficient use of funds as well as minimal disruption to learning environments and our students. In the event the referendum does not pass, we will pivot immediately to implement our contingency plans, including the need to keep current fourth grade students in existing schools for the coming school year and prepare for moving fifth grade teachers from Silverbrook into those elementary schools. So these changes would be necessary to accommodate the current enrollment while maintaining alignment with the available resources that we'll have to attend to needs in our facilities. So certainly the referendum results will shape our timeline and next steps. So we would just like to express our appreciation for the community's engagement throughout the well over a year-long process in that. And then, again, we'll start fine-tuning our plans for the future once the vote and results are available. Also, just a few reminders. I know I might have mentioned these before, but those dates are coming up. The Fall High School Play, Alice's Adventures in Wonderland, will be presented by the West Bend High School's Drama Club. Those performances will be on November 15th at 7 p.m., the 16th at both 2 and 7 p.m., and November 17th at 2 p.m. You can purchase tickets at the high school bookkeeping office, at the door for the performance, or using a QR code on one of the posters that you see around town, at your school, or on social media. Also, you can get your tickets now for the Holiday Pops concert. The Columns Holiday Pop Concert is by the Milwaukee Symphony Orchestra. Again, Columns is a community organization that sponsors scholarships for our students, so we're appreciative. Just last year, they gave nearly $1 million in local scholarships. This is one of their largest fundraising efforts, so if you like to enjoy the symphony, but maybe not the hassle of traffic and parking, we encourage you to get tickets to see them Tuesday, December 10th, 7:30 p.m. Those tickets are $30 each. They're available at Jeff Spirits on Main, Horicon Bank, Sendix, or by calling Horicon Bank or Pick Heaters. So thank you for your support of that event. And a couple more athletics pieces. The Golf Coaches Association of Wisconsin announced 4 students from the West Bend Co-op girls golf team were recognized as 2024 Academic All-State honorees. Addison Landy, Sydney Clemens, Maddie Bell, and Rayleigh Failing. There's nominated students there's 420-ish districts across the state. So when you think about not just the students that we honored tonight who went to state to represent West Bend, but all of these accomplishments, the context of the thousands of students. So only students from 122 different high schools in the state were honored, and they are being honored for their GPA because it is an exceptional 3.844 is their average GPA as a group. So congratulations to all of them. And then swim and dive, the girls swim and dive team will compete in sectionals this coming weekend. This is the final fall sport that is still in competition, and winter sports will be right around the corner, it feels like. So that concludes my report.
Thank you. Any questions for Superintendent Wimmer regarding her report? All right, thank you again. We move now to discussion items, and our first discussion item is out-of-state and out-of-country trip requests. And I believe Dr. Quinn Trueblood is going to walk us through this item. And Dr. Trueblood is our Director of Curriculum and Instruction. Good evening to you.
Good evening. Let me pull up the PDF. Okay, good evening. Thank you for this time. Tonight we are actually seeking approval for out-of-state and out-of-country trips. And we're doing it a little bit differently this time. Rather than presenting each trip individually as they come along, we're taking a consolidation approach because when you actually look at the totality of the trips that are expected to possibly happen this year, we can be really proud and say, look at that, look what our kids are doing. And so that's a really neat opportunity. I'd like to just begin with a true thanks. I'd like to recognize our advisors and our coaches here tonight. Their dedication to making this possible for our students, the extraordinary opportunities for them to be challenged and to excel are really in the hands of our coaches and directors. The time that it takes to prepare this and to really get kids engaged is really short of magic. They have been working diligently and will be if it's up and coming and it's going to happen with their principals. Working with their athletic directors, they're working with me in the CNI department, and with Andy Sarnow in the business department to make sure that the plans are not only safe, that there's good supervision, but also the logistical and the financial plans are actually really solid, as you've seen in individual presentations. So for that matter, nothing has changed. It's just that the way in which we're approaching the board's approval is just more as a year-long. And then if there are others that we haven't captured because we're starting this up, I think it had been done before in 2018, we'll capture that again in February so that all trips are that they get a chance to happen. So I'd like to, you probably know Brenda Henschel, but she's over here. And she is, if there are any questions for our advisors and coaches who are present tonight, we can ask them to hit the floor and answer your questions. But Brenda is the advisor for the trip for Ecuador. We also have Lisa Paulson, and we have Heather Miller, who is leading the DC trip for the 8th graders. And then we also have our 2 coaches from the dance team. I just met you, but it's Kelly Mader and Michelle Zancaro. Did I say it right? Say it again? Zancanero. I didn't say it right. And then we also, of course, all the other trips tonight, Erin Felber and Molly Hengst can also answer questions if you have them. So I would like to just, for the record, because some people are tuning in and don't actually see the actual trips, I just want to very quickly identify what the trips are and whether they're out of state or out of country. And then the rest of the information on this particular item is quite detailed out here, but I'll just call out the trips and then where they're going, and then we'll take it from there. Okay, so it's the 8th grade social studies trip to Washington, D.C. It's the East Dance team to Orlando, Florida. It's the Spanish trip to Ecuador, and I'd like to note that there are not 2 Spanish trips. There's only 1 Spanish trip, but they're listed twice here, so we'll strike the bottom one. Also, there's wrestling in Ohio. There's Skills USA Nationals for leadership development, and that's in Georgia. I believe it is, let me just state this. Let me see. It's Family Career Community Leaders of America. That's the trip for national competition in Florida. There's the NSDA National Speech and Debate Tournament in Iowa. There's the NCFL Grand National Tournament in Chicago, Illinois. There's the FBLA National Leadership Conference in California. And Winter Guard, as you might recall from last time, it has multiple locations on multiple dates because it is one of those types of trips that is a little bit unique. And lastly, we have the senior class trip that would like to go to Six Flags as part of their grad night experience with the ticketing. So that completes this list of trips that is seeking board consideration and eventual approval.
Excellent.
I will open the floor for any questions you might have.
Fantastic. So just for the board, this is a discussion item, so we'll be considering it for action at the next, but certainly we're free to ask questions. What I might just start with is I recognize several of these. I don't consider any of these to be unusual or ones that we've not done in the past. I mean, when we take a look at the detail, perhaps we can look more in depth at that. But it seems like many of these are ones we've done in the past. Is that true?
That is true. Oftentimes they're annual trips. They just haven't quite, we have to kind of go through phases of competition or phases of interest that our students have. Whether or not these trips actually happen or not will actually be vetted through in that process.
Sure, makes sense. And also, generally speaking, there are costs to some of these trips, but I seem to remember our general approach is perhaps there are some incidental expenses, minimal ones that are covered by the district, but often there's student fundraising or other sources for these. Can you generally talk about the philosophy? It might be that different trips are different, but can you just give a broad overview of that?
Yes, almost all of these trips are eligible and for sure for fundraisers. And many of these trips have fundraising schemas. They already are well developed. We're not creating new ones. The one that may be a little unusual because a senior class trip, there might be a student leader who would like to take up a charge for fundraising. That is up to that leader. But other than that, that is actually the only trip that is fully student funded. Mm-hmm. But others have some financial arrangement that require either fundraising or there's always the activity funds or the resources through the district.
Sure. I realize I'm asking a very general question, and the detail is here, and we'll have a chance to look at it between now and the time we consider it for action. But that's very helpful. Thank you. Other questions from board members as we consider this?
I want to add with fundraising, it's really, really important that it's affordable for students because that creates a lot of opportunity for them, but also access for them. And when there isn't, there are ways in which we can offer some support for that to allow students to go. So it is not a deal breaker, but it's an individual basis, but we want this to be very cost effective and very accessible to students.
Thank you. I'll just comment, I like this approach of viewing them in their totality. I think it gives a very good view of the well-roundedness of these trips. And I think also from a board efficiency perspective, it's helpful, but I'm assuming also for staff, because then we know earlier in the year as opposed to later in the year that these are approved. And so I'm optimistic about this approach. I'll be curious other board members' thoughts and feedback either now or when we take action, but I appreciate pulling it together this way. Other thoughts, questions in the meantime? We appreciate advisors for coming tonight. Thank you very much. And Dr. Trubilla, we appreciate your presentation. Anything else for us?
No, but I thought you might ask them questions because they're here. But instead of that, I see that we're just about compliments.
Well, that's-
so that's
no,
really
that's
great for
okay.
me too, about all of our advisors here. So compliments to you all.
Very much so.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for coming. All right. We'll move on to our next agenda item then. Our next agenda item falls under our action section, and that is revenues and expenditures in the aggregate through September 30th, 2024. We invite Andy Sarno forward. He's our Assistant Superintendent of Business and Operations. He'll walk us through this item. And Mr. Sarno, good evening.
Good evening, Mr. President. Good evening, members of the board. I appreciate this opportunity tonight. We bring this information forward on a monthly basis. There are on occasions where we're either starting a fiscal year, wrapping up a fiscal year, where we will briefly pause, but I'll reference back to our last debt rating call, which was now a couple years ago, and we're refinancing a debt issue, which incurred quite a bit of savings due to that situation. We're complimented by the transparency of this. So it's important to know that sharing this financial information on a monthly basis, there is meaning. On a monthly basis, typically this would fall under the consent agenda. On a quarterly basis, and that's what this information represents, is July, August, and September. So our first quarter of our fiscal year, we present just a little bit more detailed information, a little bit more summary on a monthly basis. But it compares this year's approved budget or the revised. Right now we're at the approved at this point in the year, and the activity to date, representing through September 30th. And taking a look at those percentages, trying to find any outliers. Is there anything unique that's happening that we need to monitor? As well, there's last year's budget, and at this point, it's the revised budget since that was the final acted amount, as well as the activity through the same point in time. Again, looking at any variances, because it just gives a couple of different data points. This year is just a little bit unique, and I'll even just briefly hold up, because 2 weeks ago, I was in front of you when we approved technically 2 budgets. Pending the outcome of the referendum tomorrow. And so I kept that same format. We have just a little bit of additional information on the first page. The only difference being that there's a levy of $8.2 million pending a past referendum versus no levy if that referendum were not to pass tomorrow in blue. So I have just a little bit of duplicative information there, but it tracks, it's again, revenues and expenditures in the aggregate, meaning we take all of the funds that are in those bracketed areas, because again, that's our required chart of accounts through our accounting system that were acquired by the DPI, but it's all of those cumulative funds. We've spoken about some profits or some surpluses versus some deficits where we're strategically using some fund balance specifically towards payment of final debt, because those dollars have already been levied, and a couple of little bit of fluctuations in other funds as well. Really important part as well. I have spoken a little bit more in recent months about cash flow. So this one, right on top, you'll even see that as we have all of the revenues that have come in to date, don't always align with the expenditures that are paid, again, through this point in time. So this year, a little over $7.5 million of a deficit, just cash flow wise. So that's why as we take a look at something like fund balance, why the school board has even enacted a policy to have sufficient fund balance to not have to short-term borrow, because number one, we don't incur then any revenues from interest, but number two is it just makes sure that we're financially stable. Again, recognized by that debt rating call that we had, that what is the health of our organization. So I just wanted to point that out. We are still in a position where we have a sufficient fund balance for our cash flow. It was tighter this year than it was last year, and we're going to continue to monitor that, okay? Bottom of the first page, general fund, again, showing a balanced budget both years. and activity is very similar. Some very minor variances that we'll see, but a lot lower dollar amounts. We look at some larger expenditures like salary and benefits. Some of that's payroll dependent on when the timeline or time cycle of our payroll, but very minimal variances. I don't have anything that's currently standing out. We're monitoring everything. We're making sure that our claims are timely. But at this point in the year, again, through September 30th, when we take a look at our state aid as well as our property taxes, we're still a couple of months out of recognizing those revenues. But again, we are incurring the expenditures related to the cash flow. Second page that we have, these are our 20s funds. So we have our gift fund, which is our student-led dollars. Again, summary information, just taking a look at that, some very minor variances, and this does fluctuate from one year to the next. You just saw a bunch of trips. Quite a bit of that activity flows through here, both money coming in and money going out. So a lot of variance, but we continue to see post-COVID a lot of activity in this fund. That's important to know that students are active and engaged and passionate about their groups. Fund 27 in the middle section there is our special education. Again, all of the activities related to IEPs, individualized education plans of our students. Very minor variances. I see, we can take a look at equipment where we've purchased a piece of equipment this year. We didn't have anything, so it stands out as something that it's expense, but very small dollars. So minimal variances with revenues and expenditures. Nothing that stands out. I'm content with everything that we're reporting at this time of year. Fund 29 is our Head Start program. We're the countywide fiscal agent for that program for students behind us and at a couple other sites. Again, minimal dollars at this point in time, minimal claims that have been made, but again, minimal expenditures as well. So we're making sure, because this as well impacts our cash flow. When we take a look at our non-referendum debt, which is on the top portion of the page, we have no more activity. We made our final payment of $1 million in principal last year. A little bit of interest as well last year, but that fund has been closed. No planned activity for the foreseeable future. That goes upon your action. So you guys would be responsible if something like that were to move ahead with incurring non-referendum debt. Referendum debt, here's where we see again that purple and the blue related to the outcome of the referendum question tomorrow. And then everything else as well is just per the repayment schedule, interest income, no outliers that we have concern about. As well, remember that there are dollars set aside for the repayment of the existing debt. Next three funds are designated for facilities. We have our Fund 41, which is our capital expansion. This is that binding dollar amount as per our annual meeting in September. So you can see the $1.875 million grew by about 4%, a little over 4% from last year's activity. They have completed a little bit more of their projects than at this point last year, but that's really project dependent on how fast they're able to close some of those facilities projects out. Only other activity that we have in these two other funds is interest income. So we have a estimated interest in our Fund 46. Those dollars are available for spending in conjunction with other projects independently. And then as well, we still have the Barton Elementary proceeds, second year now where we're putting interest because there's a positive fund balance, so estimating a little bit of interest. It's not untypical though where we are tracking interest on a monthly basis. We don't journal entry out or we don't code those out until 2, 3, 4 months into the fiscal year, which is why it's not at this point in time, just like last year, not acknowledging any revenue for interest purposes. Nutrition Fund, which is our Fund 50, a little bit of a deficit this year, building a program, trying to be mindful of those lunch prices for students, but activity again is very consistent. Limited revenues at this point in time. Again, just through September, we're barely 4 weeks into the school year, but the full swing of buying produce and food and staffing for all of this, but very consistent with last year. In fact, expenditures are down just slightly, being mindful of our bottom line. Last component on this page is our other post-employment benefit trust. Again, tracking our revenues as well as our expenditures. No outliers at this point in time, making sure that we're monitoring because As you've probably heard, the Federal Reserve with dropping the interest rate a little bit, just trying to be mindful of what kind of return and where we have those dollars held to maximize the return on our fund balance. But our retiree disbursements are pretty consistent with previous years. Again, no outlying concerns. Last two funds that we have, again, kind of things outside of the typical school day. We have our Fund 80, which is our Community Services Fund. I shared all the programs related to this at our annual meeting as a requirement of that meeting. Things are trending very well. People are aware of their budgets, what dollars we have, as well as the fee collection for participating students. But again, no levy at this point in time of the year because it's a little bit too early. And speaking of too early is our Fund 99, which is our cooperative sports. We're the fiscal agent for 3 different sports. Those seasons haven't begun yet. So minimal expenditures. I think it's related to a small fee that we collected as well as paying for a tournament already, just like we did last year. But you'll start to see a little bit more activity in the coming months for these different areas. But I'd be happy to answer any questions if there was any.
Thank
you
you.
were wondering.
Board members, any questions? You had addressed this actually at a prior meeting when we talk about interest income. When we have free cash, I would imagine, private consumer could say, oh, I'm going to invest it in Bitcoin, or I'm going to put it into, the S&P 500. We can't do that exactly, can we? I mean, what is allowed when we talk about how much money we're able to earn? The choices are somewhat limited, I think, but safe. Is that correct?
Correct. Yeah, we need to make sure that we're being mindful. These are taxpayer dollars, so there is no S&P 500. There are no stocks and bonds. We have a limited options. So we have a sweep account through our local bank. It actually does quite well. Because of we have an agreement with them. We have a local government investment group that's been set up for us on behalf of municipalities, school districts, I believe the UW system. So that does okay. They make sure that they are compliant with the options that we have. And then as well, there's been a private group that is governed by a consortium of school districts and municipalities. So we have 3 different options. Coincidentally, the bank outperforms the other 2 by just a little bit, again, because of the agreement that we have. But I'm happy about that. But again, we need to be mindful. So other than those 3 options, we can put them in short-term notes, things like that, again, being mindful of trying to project out what kind of return that is and what fluctuations. Right now, if we project that interest rates are going to continue to drop, if we can lock those in for a little bit longer period of time, that's helpful, but yet at the same time, do we need to make sure that we're monitoring cash flow as well? Because when it's tied up, you don't have access. How liquid is it? So we monitor a lot of that, but there are limited options that we have.
Sure. Thank you for that.
Yeah, appreciate it.
Board members, other questions? June?
You've mentioned cash flow a couple times.
Yeah.
And so just for an awareness, can you share with the board at what intervals do we receive cash throughout the fiscal year? It's not just one big bucket at the beginning of the year, right?
Yeah, correct. Yeah,
okay. Could you speak to that a little bit?
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate that. So cash flow is interesting. Even from a business perspective, a private business that makes widgets, they have to have sufficient cash flow to meet their financial needs as well, making widgets and selling them and fulfilling their financial obligations. We have the same type of thing. So when we take a look between our property taxes, and there are different intervals when we receive those, they're always after the fact. So we receive our first property tax payments middle of January, first chunk. Second chunk is a little bit further, later in April. So they're always pretty, based on the dollar amount, they're always pretty reliable based on the dollar amount, assuming that those municipalities have collected those. Similarly, our state aid, so again, a large portion of our revenues come from state aid. We receive our first portion of that on about the middle of December 15th. So when we take a look, they do line up fairly well with some larger dollar amounts that are our cash flow availability. But they're always a little bit after the fact, which is why then when you take a look at the fluctuations, we will get tight a couple of times a year, typically from about mid-December to mid-January, and then again in June. So, again, depending on the mix of when those dollars, we're about 50-50 based with our property taxes and our state aid. There's other districts that are a little bit more heavily funded through the state aid component. That funding comes earlier versus districts that are more property tax based come later. So there's fluctuations based on that need. And again, also dependent on the cash flow that already exists. So, yeah. Good questions tonight.
Thank you for that. Other questions? Thank you for your presentation. We appreciate that.
Yeah,
This
thank
is an action item. And as such, I would move to approve revenues and expenditures in the aggregate through September 30th, 2024 as presented. Would there be a second?
Second.
Seconds all around. We're going to give, we give that one to Melanie. We have a motion and second to approve revenues and expenditures in the aggregate through September 30th, 2024 as presented. Final discussion? Hearing none. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Thank you. That motion carries. We appreciate your presentation. With that, we move then to future agenda items. We start with our board meeting calendar. We have a number of meetings scheduled. All the meetings I'm going to announce are scheduled to take place at the Education Service Center. November 12th, Curriculum Committee meeting, 4:30 p.m. November 18th, regular board meeting, 5:30 p.m. November 26th, Policy Committee meeting, 4 p.m. And on December 2nd, another regular board meeting, 5:30 p.m. I believe that concludes the items we have on our board meeting calendar. But we also encourage the members of the public to check the official meeting postings in case the date or time of these meetings or location might change. Any questions on the board meeting calendar? Other items for follow-up and communication? Superintendent Wimber, I did have one just very quick question. So after the referendum, there's going to be, I believe there's a canvassing process, is that correct? Is that something that's published? There's a public notice. How does that work?
Sure, you can find that on our website. It is a public notice of that, and I believe it's on the 11th that will be held. Melanie, as clerk, oversees that process.
Great, excellent, thank you. Other questions regarding, or items for follow-up and communication? Well, hearing none, we've reached the end of our planned agenda, so I would move to adjourn. Is there a second? Thank you, Kelly. We have a motion and second to adjourn. Any final discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Thank you. That motion carries, and we stand adjourned. Appreciate everyone coming, attending tonight. Anyone viewing at home?